Hello, and welcome to King's InterHigh Voices Parent Edition. My name is Esther Clark, and I'm the Executive Director of Marketing at Inspired Education Online. I'm really excited that you've joined us for this event, and I am joined by three of our fabulous parents of King's InterHigh, and I will be introducing them shortly. But just to start off, just to note that this is the first, it's the inaugural Parents Roundtable, and we do hope to have many of these in the future for future prospective parents and families. We'd love to get your feedback in terms of what else you'd like us to talk about and share our experiences about, as well as any other people you'd like to hear from, such as teachers, students, and alumni and graduates. But without further ado, let me introduce our fabulous panel of parents from King's InterHigh. I'm going to start by asking Teresa to say her name, share her child's name and age and year at King's InterHigh, as well as perhaps a fun fact about your experience with King's InterHigh. So go ahead, Teresa. Do you mind introducing yourself?
I live in the UAE, but also in the UK, so we straddle both times, which can sometimes be a little bit of fun. I don't really have a fun fact, apart from, I'm sorry, I just don't have a fun fact.
Thanks, Teresa. No, that was amazing, and it's good to hear that we have people joining us from different parts of the world. I'm Canadian, but I'm here based in the UK, and I will hand over to Joe. If you don't mind coming on screen and telling me a little bit about you and your child that studies with us, and perhaps a fun fact or something interesting about King's InterHigh to share. Thank you.
Hi, Esther. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, my daughter is Georgia, and she's in year 7. She's just finished year 7, actually. She's been with King's InterHigh for 1 year. She's going into year 8. A fun fact about Georgia is that she is a golfer, an inspiring golfer. She wants to be a professional golfer, actually, and follow in my footsteps, because that's what I did. So it's been great for the last year that she's been with InterHigh. Because it's given her the freedom to be able to play golf while she's doing her education.
Thank you so much for that. And next, but certainly not least, is Ellen. Ellen, if you don't mind coming on camera and just letting us know the year, group, the name of your child, and perhaps something interesting about King's InterHigh for you.
Thanks, Esther. Hopefully you can see me. My name is Ellen. I come from sunny Wales. It's actually raining today, but we're based in Wales. My daughter is Elizabeth. She's just finished her GCSEs in year 10 and is about to study A-levels in September. Fun fact, Elizabeth is a tennis player. She's hoping to eventually be a professional tennis player, and she's probably logged into her King's InterHigh lessons from about 10 different countries over the last 2 years. So that sort of shows the flexibility that probably King's InterHigh has offered Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for that. So you can see that we have quite a diverse group of parents here with us today from different year groups and from different countries as well, and different interests and again, GCSEs and other year groups as well. So I would like to just delve into the questions if that's okay. But before doing that, for the audience, you will see two buttons here in the presentation. One is book a call. So we invite you to book a call with one of our friendly admissions staff if you want to hear more about King's InterHigh. And the second one is register your interest or contact us, and that will lead you to a form to fill out. So if you're interested at all, please do so now or do so after the presentation. So let's delve into some of these questions, and I really want this to be as engaging and enriching as possible. I know you guys have lots to share as parents of King's InterHigh students. So let's start off with like the new new academic year. So you've been with King's InterHigh for a while, all of you. Just wondering, how do you prepare for September start? What does success look like for you? Like how do you prepare your child for a successful start in September? And I'm going to pass it over to Joe first, if that's okay, Joe, to answer that question.
That's fine. Yes, Esther. So yes, well, so Georgia obviously started in last September. So it was a bit of a whirlwind to start with, because we signed up in August. So it was a little bit of a panic to start with, getting the timetable ready. So the timetable came to us about a couple of days beforehand, but that's because we signed up quite late. So I would highly recommend anyone, if they are thinking of doing it, to do it earlier rather than later. So for my experience, we prepared her. To be honest, the sign up and the platform is so easy to use. The InterHigh were incredibly helpful with all the technical issues, if there were any. We didn't really have any technical issues, but it actually worked really quickly. And for her, going into year 8, we'll get the timetable ready. We'll see what lessons she has, and we have to buy a couple of things if she's doing creative media or any of the art subjects, and we get some books as well. But it's such an easy transition that I'm not really too concerned about it, and she'll be excited to start the year. It's nice now that we've finished the term, and she's got the summer holidays. But going straight back into it, she'll just be excited about getting on with lessons, and she's got friends who she's met through King's InterHigh through her lessons, so she'll be seeing them into the new term. So yeah, I think it's very easy transition.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Joe. Teresa, I know that we've seen you for a few years with King's InterHigh, and so I was wondering if we could ask you about any tips or any ways that you prepare for a successful start in September. I'm sure all the parents watching would be dying to know some of your tips for starting in September. You'll need to unmute your microphone, Teresa.
Apologies. One of the biggest tips is just be prepared for every eventuality. You can plan and plan and plan, but there's going to be something that you're not going to have planned for. So I think you just have to be flexible in your approach. One of the biggest things that when I spoke to new parents joining King's InterHigh is to just try and relax. Don't get too stressed if things don't go right, especially from a technology perspective, because that's the nature of being online school, and there is going to be some technical issues. Besides the technical issues you have no control over, there's also the problems where you're trying to learn a whole new platform and you really can't pick it up all in one go. It took us initially, I would imagine, before we got quite comfortable with the whole situation, it was probably almost a whole term. And it's just a real learning process that you've just got to make these mistakes. There's lots of support and help. You need to make sure you know the right email addresses to contact so you can get in touch with IT. There's also lots of WhatsApp groups where parents in abundance are there to help and support new parents coming online. So one of the things, the biggest thing I can say is please try and stay calm. Don't panic, because that panics our kids as well. So, but just ask lots of questions. I made the mistake, I think, at the very beginning, not asking enough, thinking, oh, I should know this or I should be doing this. And it was a mistake I made, but I learned by that. And so any new parents coming in, please don't feel silly to just keep asking lots and lots of questions and get help from different sources. King's InterHigh, parents WhatsApp groups in your year as well are really, really helpful.
Great advice. And I think it's applicable to beyond King's InterHigh as well. Ask lots of questions and be curious. I love that. Thank you so much, Teresa. Over to you, Ellen, in terms of what tips or what kind of suggestions you have for making it a successful start in September for the start of the new school year.
Yeah, well, I think Teresa and Joe sort of gave some really good tips. You know, one positive is there's no rush for uniform. So that August rush for shoes and uniform isn't needed. So that's a plus. I think I mentioned earlier on that Elizabeth was coming out of year 10 and just in GCSEs, just to confirm that's year 11 she's coming out of. So I got my years sort of mixed up. I would say that we are about to go into A levels. So for me, one thing I've learned about online schooling is that you just need to make sure that you're there to support your child, probably a little bit more than you would be in a typical bricks and mortar school. It would be the normal sort of setup of sort of what files do you need, what stationery do you need, but you've also got to be thinking, where is Elizabeth going to be working? You know, what room is she going to be working in? And sometimes, you know, it's good to get them out of their one workspace so that they actually have a little bit of variety. So thinking that through, making sure that the timetable is really clear and that you've picked the right subject. So for example, Elizabeth's going into A levels. She's picked the A level she thought she wanted, but she wants to change one. So I'm currently in the process of working with the school, who are very helpful in sorting this out. So I would say being organised as a parent and just realising that they definitely need that support and help along the way as well. So they were my additional thoughts.
Thank you for that, and I agree with you about having a kind of a set space for the child to do their schoolwork. In addition to be the director of marketing, I also have a daughter at King's InterHigh, and she has this amazing space that she works in, and she is able to put up all of her schedules and notes and things, and I think that really helps. And so that's a tip from me as well to the audience, that it's great to have that space for studying at home or wherever you may be. I think the next question I wanted to pose to our panelists is about how we can ensure that our children are motivated, engaged in their studies. I believe that there is a myth of online schooling being a bit disengaged or not being as engaging as other forms of learning, of teaching and learning. So I'd like to ask Teresa, if that's okay, in terms of how do we ensure and how do you ensure that your child remains motivated and excited about learning?
Well, I actually look at it quite holistically. I think that the staying motivated about learning isn't just looking at the education and the curriculum learning. I think it's a whole package. So what I tried to do really was try and make it so my child had lots of different avenues to take a break from academics. So he's actually an athlete, and so we brought a program together that fits with the King's InterHigh timetable because of the flexibility. And so in between having lessons, whether they're recorded or whether they're live, he can actually go off and do what he really enjoys. And I find that really motivates him and really gears him up to go, okay, back to the desk, back to the table, back to my academics. So I do believe that the whole King's InterHigh flexibility actually encourages the fact that you can allow the children to stay motivated by also allowing them to follow their passion at the same time. Where I think with bricks and mortar school, you kind of go to school in the morning, you finish school in the evening, and then you've got free time in the evening. Where the way that I work it with my child is really we mix and match it throughout the day. And, you know, if sometimes he's just not feeling it, we can take a day out, and that also is motivational. It's like, okay, and he'll go, oh, I need to go back now. I need to go and review this lesson, because, you know, we're all human, and the children sometimes they have a day when they just don't want to, you know, fully function. And especially when I think they're hitting the teenage years, having that flexibility to pull them away and go, okay, let's go and do something fun that you want to go and do, and then we'll come back to it. And that's like, yeah, that's great, that's okay. So that's how I look at the motivational side of it.
I really like that. It's like self-directed learning and the student at the center of their learning. That sounds amazing. And I would say that that's something as an adult I always try to do for myself as well. There's always be learning and looking at ways to engage, with your environment and learn new things. So I really love that response. Thank you so much, Teresa. What about you, Joe? Is there anything that you can share with us in terms of engaging, how you engage your child in terms of online schooling, how you keep them engaged and excited?
Yes, it's interesting. Teresa was talking about how she moves her son on and they can go and do other things as well. And that's very much what I do with Georgia. As a year 7 student, coming out of primary school, the kids aren't quite as motivated, or not necessarily as motivated as you get on to the older years of school. So with my daughter, we look at the schedule, we look at her timetable, and because she chooses the subjects she wants to do. So obviously with the core subjects, you can choose other ones that she's interested in. And I think that's where the motivation is, because they've chosen it themselves. They've got the autonomy to choose themselves. And I think for a year 7 student, she chose at the beginning of last year which ones she wanted to do. So I think that keeps the motivation. And she took creative media last year, which she absolutely loved. And from that, during the lessons, we looked at what she was doing, and then we went off and we have the freedom, we have the time, because there aren't lessons 8 hours a day. There just aren't. And so she has that freedom to be able to go to trips to London. We go to art galleries and we do lots of different things in the school day. Although it's not school, is it? Well, it's online school, but she gets that freedom to do stuff. And we might have a break. She has a break over a couple of hours where we'll go to the golf course and she can practice her sport. She does other things as well. So she has a lot of interests out of school, but then it's great to be able to come back to do the core subjects as well. And with the Inspired AI on the platform, I don't know where she gets the motivation from, but she really does. I think it's because the platform is so it's great technology that they can, if they're behind on something, or if they want to learn something a little bit more, then they've got the Inspired AI and the nuggets to be able to help them with the subjects as well. And for my year 7 girl, she has had that motivation. And I think it's just going to continue into year 8, and she's chosen the subjects for year 8, which keeps her motivated, because that's what she actually wants to do. So yeah, it's very good.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. And just a note there, I mean, I would love to perhaps have another roundtable where we talk about technology in education, because I think there's a lot to be said about that, and to hear student experiences as well around tech. But if you do have questions about Inspired AI and the use of technology and how we integrate those into teaching, do feel free to contact us. There's a book a call button as well as a contact form. So if anyone listening to us would like to contact, please do so. Ellen, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of engaging your child in learning and how you get them motivated?
Yeah, well, I think I agree with Teresa and Joe, really. I think that flexibility is really important, depending on the individual child. So what I feel to keep Elizabeth motivated, I've tended to link her studies to perhaps her dreams of the future or her future plans. So whether somebody wants to be a nurse or an athlete or an investment banker or want to go to Oxford or Cambridge, I think sort of having that in your mind for the future and allowing them to sort of look at the different steps. I mean, it's more difficult when perhaps they're in year 7, but when they get towards the GCSE years and they're choosing their subjects and A levels, I think giving them that sort of aspiration to sort of to want something really lovely in their life, and linking that to education, I think, is really important. So when they're perhaps not as motivated to do a bit of revision in GCSE, I find that helps a little bit. I think being organised, not allowing them to get overwhelmed. I think that can happen sometimes. So you know, the system is so well organised in terms of having everything recorded, but they do need a little bit of help. You know, sometimes I find, you know, Elizabeth, I think she's totally in control, and then 4 weeks later, I might find her sort of really down in the dumps because she's lost control of where she is. So I think I mentioned earlier on about making sure that as a parent we keep an eye on that, and you know, sort of don't drop the ball. And I think making sure that they have some social interaction outside, so whether that be through their sport or their interests or old school friends from old schools, I just think that that's really, really important. So they are the most important things that I found so far.
And Ellen, just on that point, I mean, what was the kind of the reason for moving from mainstream school and the old school that Elizabeth was at to King's InterHigh? Like, what was the reason behind that?
Well, I mentioned Elizabeth's a tennis player, and there comes a time, and it could be in year 7, year 8, year 9, where a child who is interested in following a particular interest, sport or activity. I think we've got lots of sort of drama students at King's InterHigh, and chefs and cooks and various other sort of people. Their training load really goes up quite a lot. And I found myself just driving from one part of the country to the other and back again on a daily basis. And it just got to the point that our quality of life as a family was really, really poor. So I met a gentleman in an event who talked to me about King's InterHigh, and I thought, oh gosh, that would be interesting. So then I looked into it, had a couple of conversations. I think I might have met you, Esther, actually, and it's just been fantastic. It's just delivered the right solution that allows Elizabeth to really do well in her studies, just as well as she would have done in her previous school, as well as operate at a really good standard in her sport. So it's, you know, it was that decision of too difficult for the family, but the results that have come out of it have been better than we could ever have imagined, I'd say.
Thank you. And Joe, was it a similar reason for you and Georgia in terms of moving from mainstream to online, or were there other reasons for doing so?
We had other reasons. Georgia's never really loved school. She's a very sociable girl, but she just hasn't really loved it. And when we had COVID and we did the online schooling with COVID, she was in her element. She loved being at home, and she went back to school for a year after COVID. But then it got to the point where she was like, oh, I just want to homeschool, Mum. She just kept saying, Mum, I just want to be at home. And and then sort of that tied in with her golf, and we thought, well, she was playing golf quite a bit, and we thought, well, we could actually combine the two and do the homeschooling and the golf. So she was actually homeschooled for 2 years before we joined King's InterHigh. And King's InterHigh came along just at the right time for me, because finding a lot of online lessons online on the internet, but with King's InterHigh it suddenly became all in one place, and it has made such a much better transition. Helped me, so I'm not having to find Zoom links all the time, and it's given Georgia the autonomy, and she's got the control over getting onto her lessons, and she much prefers it that way. She hasn't got me hanging over her shoulder saying, oh, this is the number for the Zoom. So now she just goes on to the lessons herself. I don't do anything. In fact, she shows me how to do it.
Yeah. So really interesting.
yeah, yeah. So it's been great for her, and she just loves being at home.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that Georgia had taken that path from traditional to home education to King's InterHigh. So it's really interesting to hear that. And perhaps Teresa, if you don't mind sharing your motivation or the what prompted you to move to online from mainstream, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, Esther. We had a similar scenario where we have been bricks and mortar before. So I don't know whether you picked up at the beginning, but we live in the United Arab Emirates right at the very beginning. So my son has pretty much only known his life in the UAE. And during from around about year 2 to year 3, he was in a bricks and mortar school. But I was also really close friends with a homeschooling family. So I used to kind of look at what they were doing and then look at the bricks and mortar school. And I'd be torn between the two, if I'm to be honest. I used to love what they were doing, but I also liked the structure of school. And I always thought, even back then when he was younger, would there be another way? Is there something else that we could do that, isn't one or the other? Because one thing that I was very self-aware of is that I don't think I could ever teach him. I'm an early years educator myself, so I was perfectly fine until about age 6. Then after that, it kind of goes out of my zone. So yeah, so we started off with bricks and mortar. Then my husband got a job in quite a remote location, and this is where our journey with King's InterHigh started. So there wasn't really much choice from an educational perspective. And he did actually start in a school. And I was unsure about the curriculum. So I thought it was better that we would search other options. So we did. We had a look around, and that's where King's InterHigh came in after the research that I'd done. It was mainly King's InterHigh were one of the first to come back to me with some, great information and real sort of, guidance as to how things, and it was InterHigh then before it became King's InterHigh. And so the one thing I loved about it is there was a trial. We could try it, and if we didn't like it, we could put it back on the shelf and walk away. So that's the idea that I liked, because I didn't actually know whether it was the right thing to do or not. And I think most parents coming to King's InterHigh sometimes, how do you know it's the right thing? You've got to give it a go and see. So yeah, so we moved Alexander in November 2020 onto online learning at King's InterHigh. And lo and behold, COVID kicked in just a few months later. So I heard one of the mums talking about, being in COVID. It wasn't actually a COVID choice for us, but we were really, really glad that we'd actually already made that stride into online school. So there we were in a remote location, and there wasn't any schooling available, so we stuck with King's InterHigh. Since COVID, we actually moved back into our old area where he went to bricks and mortar school in a place called Al Ain, which is out in the desert. And Alexander had a choice at that point. Do you want to go back to the school that you left in year 5, or do you want to carry on learning with King's InterHigh? I thought he was going to say, I want to go back to back to school because of the social aspect. And of course, we'd just come out of COVID, so it was even enhanced about the social issues that every child had then. So I was thinking he was going to go, yeah, I want to go back to bricks and mortar so I can make friends and, be with my old classmates. But it wasn't the choice that he made. He wanted to stay with King's InterHigh. He enjoyed the flexibility. And of course, as I mentioned before, because he is an athlete, the flexibility that he has is fantastic for him. Doesn't work for everybody, but it does work for him. So our motivation really was initially because we were, put into a remote location, and we've had both bricks and mortar and online school now. And definitely our preference is to continue with the online school because it just works perfectly for us.
Thank you so much, Teresa. You've actually answered my next question, which was around the highlights of online schooling. You've already answered that, so I'll pass the mic over to Joe, if that's okay, in terms of a highlight or a biggest challenge of online education, Joe, that you've experienced this year.
The highlight is the freedom to travel. So we love travelling. That is massively a highlight. And also, if you're not able to travel, because we in the term time we just stay at home. But again, it's the freedom to be able to do lessons online anywhere. So the places that Georgia has done her lessons, we've done a lesson in the car driving to a golf tournament, or we do a lot of lessons in the coffee shop. We might have a trip to London, and because we're not restricted that she has to be somewhere, we will go for the day in London, go to some galleries, and then she'll pop on a lesson, do her lesson, and then we can carry on with the day. So it's been great. The other side of it, I don't know if there are actually. I guess sometimes if she misses a lesson, it's just catching up on them. So it's about me having to just say to her, look, are you going to catch up on your lessons? She knows in her mind that she's missed a lesson, and obviously every lesson's recorded and they can catch up any time, so which is great. But it's her knowing, she knows she's got that lesson to catch up on, and to be fair to her, she always catches up on them. I think the other thing is I think, was it Teresa? No, yes, Teresa's mentioned about the socialising, and I think the key thing there is actually as a parent, with one of the younger children, because she's she's 7 going into 8, is to keep their social interactions with other children, and that's just about she does after school clubs, but I think that's I feel it's my duty to take her to all the activities that she would like to do after school, and also to catch up with her friends, and yeah, she's very happy doing it that way, rather than seeing her friends in bricks and mortar school. She never saw that as socialising. Her socialising is when you're not in school, and so it's after school activities. I hope that helps.
Of course, definitely helps. I'm just looking at the time, and I would love to keep chatting with you guys for a long time more, but I think we should probably wrap up. And so I think I'd like to ask perhaps for each of our panelists to share a pearl of wisdom, something they'd like to share with prospective parents that are watching this. Just something you'd like to share about your experience or about King's InterHigh. So if it's okay, let me hand over to Ellen for that last little nugget of wisdom, if you'd like to share something, Ellen.
Yeah, probably a few things actually. Okay, I would just say that for those that have not signed up so far, and you just sort of testing and trying to understand, when Elizabeth joined King's InterHigh, I was InterHigh at the time, we joined after Easter, before the September that she fully joined. So we joined for a term. And I think Teresa mentioned earlier on about trialing, and that was a really good trial for us. So it gave us the understanding of how the technology works, how the teaching works, how everything works. And after that term, we were convinced that InterHigh, or King's InterHigh as it is now, was absolutely right for Elizabeth. So I would give that as a tip to anyone, especially those who are looking to join for GCSEs. So I would definitely join in Easter of year 9. That would probably be my big tip. And one other thing I'd like to say is, as a parent, when you're in a bricks and mortar school, some schools are good at this and some schools are really bad. And I've experienced bad, I'd say, is understanding how your child is doing amongst its peers. And one of the great things about King's InterHigh is that they have friendly assessments all of the time. So, and they all get graded, and you can then see where your child is amongst their peers. So you can see whether they're doing average, pretty well, not so good. So you can actually step in if you need to help them. So I found that a real benefit that I didn't get in bricks and mortar schools. That's me.
Thank you so much. Teresa, any parting words or any nugget of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience today?
A little nugget of wisdom. Well, I always like this statement, communication is key, only because I fell foul of it myself in the early days. I do believe that sometimes we think that we should know something, but we don't. And you must ask questions because it's so important. And it's amazing the feedback that you can get once you start accepting that there are things that maybe you don't know. But the other thing is, I tend to believe that most people think online or home education is an isolation and that your children won't be able to socialise or will, become insular for whatever reason. And I do believe that as a parent, there is an element that you have got to work hard to prevent that from happening. And I spoke to a lot of kids in schools, in bricks and mortar schools, and half of them don't even socialise with the children that they're at school with at home. They see them at school and then they leave and they go. So they don't actually see them at home anyway. It's only during school time. So I think don't fall foul of that, oh, we're not going to have any friends, because children, even in bricks and mortar school, make friends outside of school through other social interactions, such as sports clubs and all the things that they follow. So allow them to have the freedom to follow the passion, and you won't have a socialization issue at all.
Thank you, Teresa. Very wise words. And last but not least, Jo, is there anything you wanted to share with our audience today in terms of a nugget of wisdom or something that you've learned along the way?
Yes, and I'll make it very brief. I think the key thing for me has been to listen to my child. And my thought process of bricks and mortar school was, yes, the child has to be in school. But I have learned that by listening and really connecting with the child and talking through everything, we talk so much. We talk about what subjects Georgia wants to do, what she wants to learn, what she wants to do when she's older. It's just really about listening. And I think any prospective parents on here who want their child or interested in King's InterHigh is just to have a really good chat with your children. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you, Jo. And on behalf of King's InterHigh, I do want to thank you, Jo, Ellen, and Teresa for sharing your lived experiences today. So valuable in terms of our parent community and parent voices. The title of this roundtable is King's InterHigh Voices Parent Edition. So it was just lovely to hear from you and hear your shared and lived experiences. And I want to thank you so much for your participation today. I also want to thank the audience. I hope this has been an interesting session for you, and that you will feedback in terms of us doing more sessions like this, both on topic and on participants and panelists. So thank you again, everyone. I'd like to remind you that there are ways to get in touch. You can book a call, which is the button on the screen there, as well as you can register your interest or contact us if you have any questions at all. Our friendly admissions staff will be pleased to speak to you. So once again, thank you, everyone. And this is the end of the event. Thank you.
Thank you.